Hello, good morning. I welcome you all for my next first third term online class in biology. I welcome you all, especially 7th standard students of this new year 2022. I first wish you all a very happy new year 2022. My dear students, I hope you all are safe at home and enjoying sincerely with your online classes. Dear students, today I just want to mention two characters from the Holy Bible. Those two characters were none other than Saint Peter and Judas Iscariot. So these two persons are among those 12 apostles of Jesus. I hope you know apostles who were actually selected by Jesus Christ, and among those 12 apostles, two important characters, extreme characters. One, Saint Peter, and second one, I just want to discuss about Judas Iscariot. So both of them are just from normal families, normal person. Maybe one Saint Peter is a fisherman, whereas Judas Iscariot is a person who loves revolution, because at that moment Romans were ruling these Jews, and there were some revolution. People were expecting certain revolution to take place such that they get freedom from these Romans. So Judas Iscariot loves a revolution, whereas Saint Peter is a normal fisherman. So both were selected by Jesus Christ as an apostle. Among these two persons, Judas, who is the one who is the sole reason for Jesus Christ to be nailed in the cross. So he only betrayed Jesus. Similarly, Saint Peter, who, when Jesus was caught by the Romans, he said, "I don't know Jesus Christ." So both behave as a normal human being, but Saint Peter, who rectified his mistake, who felt for his mistake, and he started to feel for his mistake. He repented for his mistake, whereas Judas, he didn't repented, he didn't seek God for his mistake, but simply he attempted suicide. When you compare these two people, now Saint Peter is honored, is respected, and he is a role model for many people, whereas the negative role model is Judas Iscariot. The main reason I would say is Judas Iscariot didn't repented for his sins or mistakes, whereas Saint Peter, he repented, he felt for his mistake, he cried for his mistake. So as human beings, we all make mistakes. The thing is that we have to say sorry for our mistakes to God. Whoever we worship doesn't mind. So the Lord God might be called as Allah or Shiva or Jesus Christ or some other names, but we have to repent for his mistakes and live a holy life, charitable life, such that we are considered, we will be friendly to God and will be accepted by God. So keeping this as an example in our life, let us feel for our mistakes, try to modify ourselves, and thank God always for this life, for this beautiful life. In spite of pollution, in spite of various natural disasters, and in spite of all these pandemic situations, we are fine, we are alive, we are active, we are safe. It's all because of God, and it's all because of our deeds, good deeds. So we are humans, we make mistakes. So when we make mistakes, without considering those mistakes, without feeling for those mistakes, just like that, if we live, it will not be proper living, which will not satisfy God, which will not make happy, which will not make God happy. So let us repent for our mistakes, let us feel for our mistakes and try to change ourselves. Okay, I don't mean that simply asking sorry to God and again and again doing the mistakes. So let us all try to rectify our mistakes, so that not only us, our family members, all other people surrounding us will be safe and happy. Okay, now let us go into our new topic, transportation in plants and animals. Well, let's start with the new lesson, transportation in plants and animals. My dear guys, you all would have learned in lower classes that we need energy. This energy is needed for our basic functions or basic activities. For example, for walking, for leaning, for writing, for reading, for observing, for memorizing, for playing, etc. For all our life activities, we need energy. In simple way, I could say, for a living organism to survive, we need energy, and this energy is obtained from food. You might have learned in this very early of this academic year that we take nutrition in 5 stages as ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation and digestion. So we ingest food, the food goes to the stomach where it is digested, and then from there it goes to the intestine where it is absorbed, and it is taken to each and every cell of our body where it is assimilated, and finally the remaining food, which we call it as waste, is sent out, called as digestion. My dear students, this digestion or absorption takes in a particular place, namely stomach or intestine respectively, but this nutrient that is absorbed goes to each and every cell. Similarly, a cell needs oxygen for its survival. Apart from nutrition, a cell needs oxygen for its survival, and you all know that we inhale this gas that is found in the atmosphere, and maybe in the lungs, or appropriately maybe in the alveoli, where the oxygen is taken from the atmosphere and carbon dioxide is removed. This oxygen is taken to each and every cell, and from the cell the waste is again carried to the lungs, and from the lungs it is thrown away. So either obtaining a nutrient or an oxygen, or removal of the waste from each and every cell from the body, is actually by means of so-called transportation. So this is what we are going to learn in this lesson, transportation of plants and animals. That is, we are going to learn how the nutrient or the hormone or the enzyme or the oxygen is taken to each and every cell, similarly, and how they are carried to a particular place from where it is removed away. This movement of food or transportation, this movement of food or oxygen or other waste like carbon dioxide or nitrogenous waste is actually known as transportation. In animals, we come across heart, blood and blood vessels which are involved in the transportation of nutrient or oxygen or removal of particular waste. Similarly, in plants, we have xylem and phloem, two important tissues, namely two important complex tissues, namely xylem and phloem, which are involved in the transportation of water or minerals or food, namely starch, that is produced by photosynthesis. By this time you should be knowing that water and minerals from the soil is absorbed by the root system, and from the root it is transported to all parts of the body. Again I repeat, water and minerals which are absorbed by the root system, and from the root system it is transported to all other various parts of the body. Similarly, in case of animals and humans, we call this as circulatory system. The circulatory system, which includes heart, blood and blood vessel, which are involved in the transportation of nutrients or oxygen or in the removal of waste. That is, nutrient and oxygen supplied to the cell, it is by circulatory system. Similarly, the waste is removed from the cell or from the body and they are excreted out again by this transportation known as circulatory system, which includes heart, blood and blood vessel. Maybe in higher classes you will also learn more about this circulatory system in detail. Time being, in this 7th standard level, you are going to learn a limited and introductory way of this circulatory system. That is, you are going to learn a small aspect of heart, blood and blood vessel. Okay. First, let us start with transportation in animals, and then let us learn about transportation in plants. Transportation in animals, as I said just now, which includes heart, blood and blood vessel. Which includes heart, blood and blood vessels. We call this heart, blood and blood vessels as circulatory system, because here we come across the blood being circulated all over our body. Every hook and corner of our body, every cell is connected with blood, and so it is known as circulatory system. So this blood is carried by a vessel or a tubular structure known as vessel, which is called as blood vessel. Since the vessel carries the blood, I hope you know, you might have heard these vessels which are found in our body, visible even in certain parts of the body. Those are known as blood vessels. They are known as blood vessels because they carry blood, and that's why they are known as blood vessels. The main important organ is the heart. So heart is known as the pumping organ of our body. That is, blood is carried in a closed chamber known as blood vessel, and this blood is pumped all over our body with a pressure by means of this so called heart. Even though heart is very important, I am going to start with the blood vessel, then we will learn about blood, and finally we will go to the important concept, that is heart. Okay. So first let us start with blood vessel. Blood vessels. There are 3 kinds of blood vessels found in our body. The major 3 kinds of blood vessels that are found in our body are arteries, veins and capillaries. In singular it is known as artery, vein and capillary. In plural form we call them as arteries, veins and capillaries. This is the rough diagram, rough structure of our heart. So where heart is made up of 4 chambers. Okay, we will see this detail later. Heart is made up of 4 chambers, and all these 4 chambers are connected with the 4 kinds of blood vessels. Among these, 2 are veins and the remaining 2 are arteries. So from this diagram you can understand one thing, that is, from the arrow mark you can find letter V. In the first 2 arrow marks you can find a letter V, and in the next 2 arrow marks you can find letter A, which shows or which describes these 2 are arteries and these 2 are veins. Okay. Now coming to the definition of arteries. What are arteries? Arteries are blood vessels which carry blood away from the heart. A for artery, A for away. So this is a simple way by which you can recall which are all veins and which are all arteries. Again I repeat, arteries are blood vessels which carry blood away from the heart, and veins are blood vessels which carry blood towards the heart, or which brings the blood to the heart. So this is the definition of arteries and veins. Okay, arteries carry blood away from the heart and veins carry blood towards the heart. When you look into this arteries and veins, all arteries carry pure blood except one, namely pulmonary artery. So pulmonary artery, which is connected to the lungs, carries impure blood. Similarly, all veins carry impure blood except pulmonary vein. So pulmonary vein is the vein that is connected to the lungs which carries pure blood. Again I repeat, arteries carry blood away from the heart, veins carry blood towards the heart. This is the main definition. Then second point about artery is all arteries carry pure blood except pulmonary artery. Similarly, all veins carry impure blood except pulmonary vein. So when I say pure blood and impure blood, keep that in mind. The blood that contains oxygen are known as pure blood, or it is also known as oxygenated blood. Similarly, the blood which contains more amount of carbon dioxide is known as impure blood, or also known as deoxygenated blood. Oxygen containing blood, oxygenated blood. The blood that does not contain more oxygen are known as deoxygenated blood, which is also known as impure blood. So again I repeat, all arteries in our body, we have many different names given for arteries. All the arteries carry pure blood except pulmonary artery, because this pulmonary artery carries impure blood. This pulmonary artery alone carries impure blood, that is, it carries carbon dioxide containing blood. Similarly, all veins carry impure blood except pulmonary vein, because pulmonary vein alone carries pure blood. Pulmonary artery alone carries impure blood. So keep this in mind. This makes an important difference between arteries and veins. Okay, when you look into this arteries, so either artery or vein, it starts to branch such that it reaches at last in each and every cell. Either artery or vein, they branches, repeated branching, and at last each and every end of artery or each and every end of vein ends in a cell. Okay, that is, I would say each and every end of a vein as well as artery, they are connected to a cell, or in other ways I will say each cell is connected with both arteries and veins. The ultimate end of an artery or the ultimate end of the vein is actually known as capillaries. When you compare arteries, veins and capillaries, you come across arteries which have a thick wall. Arteries which have a thick wall compared to veins, because veins comparatively they have a thin wall. Compared to arteries, veins have thin wall. Okay. Similarly, capillaries, they are the thinnest of all, that is, they have a very thin wall, and this is the reason why each and every cell is connected with the capillaries, because either transportation of oxygen or transportation of nutrients is easy when the wall is thin. Okay, so I'm just drawn a structure of a tubular structure, a hollow tube, where I'm talking about the wall. Okay, the outer structure which is thick and thinner. So arteries, they have a thick wall. Veins comparatively they have a normal or a thinner wall. The thinnest of all is capillaries, and this is why it is connected to each and every cell, where either transportation of oxygen or carbon dioxide, transportation of nutrient or waste is easy through this thin wall, and capillaries have the nature just for this transportation. Okay. Then one more reason why arteries have a thick wall. When you look into the structure of this heart, you come across the vessels here, the blood vessels here are called as arteries. So when you compare the upper chamber and the lower chambers, the receiving chambers, okay, the chambers that receives the blood have low pressure compared to the chambers that sends the blood out. So when the chamber presses, what happens with high pressure, the blood goes to all parts of the body. So when you compare upper chamber and lower chamber have more pressure compared to upper chambers, because they simply receive the blood. So pressure will be low compared to the chambers below, where they press and send the blood out. So here there will be more pressure, and these chambers, since they are connected with arteries, they should have a thick wall. If they don't have a thick wall, ultimately the pressure will affect the blood vessels. It is not so with related to veins, because here pressure is low. And as I just mentioned now, capillaries, they are involved in the transportation. Either in the lungs, you come across alveoli supplied with the blood vessels, which are none other than capillaries, where they exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide, or if you take intestine, where the nutrients are absorbed. In all these places where you come across exchange of nutrient or exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, you will come across only capillaries, because they have a thin wall, and that makes them easier to transport nutrients or oxygen or carbon dioxide or waste from or outside the cell. Okay, so this is a small idea about your arteries, veins and capillaries. Again I repeat, these three are the blood vessels that are found in our body: arteries, veins and capillaries. And most of the blood vessels that are found nearer to the skin, superficial, are none other than the veins, whereas arteries and capillaries, mostly they are found underneath or inside the body, and that's why we always prefer veins for injection or collecting sample of blood, etc. Because the main reason is veins, they are found superficial, or in other words I would say veins are nearer to the skin. Our next topic is blood. So I have already said that blood is carried by blood vessels. When we learn about blood, I could classify the blood into two parts as fluid part and the solid part. The solid part are known as corpuscles, and the fluid, that is in physics, gas and liquid are known as fluid. So since gases and liquids are found, we call this as fluid. Okay, so fluid part is actually known as plasma, and the solid part is known as corpuscles. Okay, so we have two parts in blood, one is plasma and the corpuscles. These corpuscles are classified into three types as RBC, that is red blood corpuscles or red blood cells. Second, WBC, that is white blood corpuscles or white blood cells. And finally platelets. So these are the three types of corpuscles found in our body: red blood cells, white blood cells and platelets. And the name is based on the color of the cell, that is these blood cells are reddish in color, that's why they are named as red blood cells. These are whitish in color, so they are known as white blood cells. And finally these are known as platelets. Fine. So first let us start with red blood cells. These red blood cells are also known as erythrocytes. Okay, cytes means cell. Okay, the study of cell is known as cytology, and from that we get the word cytes. Okay, so there are different kinds of cytes. There are different kinds of cytes like leukocytes, erythrocytes, thrombocytes, lymphocytes. Okay, so here red blood cells are known as erythrocytes, where erythro means red. Similarly, white blood cells, which can also be called as colorless, they are also known as leukocytes. Okay, so they are white, or I could say they are colorless, and so they are known as leukocytes. And here third we have this platelets. Okay, so the red blood cells are reddish in color because of hemoglobin that is found in the red blood cells. Red blood cells have hemoglobin, which gives the red color to the cell, where heme is a iron and globin is a protein. Together it is known as hemoglobin. So this gives reddish color to the blood. And the function of red blood cell is it is the one which is involved in the transportation of oxygen and carbon dioxide. That is, red blood cells are the cells in the blood which carry oxygen from the lungs to all parts of the cell, and from the cell it carries carbon dioxide and it takes to the lungs and it throws away in the form of inhalation and exhalation. Okay, then white blood cells are cells which are involved in giving immunity to our body. So there are various different forms of immunity, and one such immunity is given by white blood cells. They act like an amoeba. When a foreign substance enters into your blood, these white blood cells goes near the germs or foreign substance and they engulf like an amoeba. So that is the specialty of white blood cells, and because of this they are also known as phagocytes. White blood cells are also known as phagocytes. The way it behaves, the way it swallows, based on that it is known as phagocytes. Then finally platelets, it appears like a small broken pieces of a plate. When you just when a plate falls down, it breaks into pieces, and that is the manner of a platelet, irregular shaped structure. And the main function of platelets is it is involved in blood coagulation or blood clotting. So that is, when you suffer with a wound, when you suffer with a wound, what happens is you come across blood oozing out of your body, and after some time the blood stops, and that is known as blood coagulation, also known as blood clotting. So this is carried out by many substances that are found in the blood, and some are present in plasma. Along with platelets, they together bring about this blood coagulation or blood clotting. Now coming to plasma, so plasma, which contains mainly water, then it also contains a certain immune cells, and it also contains certain proteins. So these are the content of a plasma. You come across water, certain immune cells, certain proteins like in the form of amino acids or proteins. All these will be found in the plasma. And finally, our heart. So far we have learned the two important structures of circulatory system. First we learned about blood vessel, then we learned about blood, and the third one important pumping organ, that is heart. So I said in the beginning, heart is a pumping organ. So if you look into the structure of a heart is a conical muscular organ. That is, it is a conical shaped organ which is made of muscles as well as certain fibers. So that's why it is known as, it is a hollow conical fibromuscular organ. The main function of heart is it pumps the blood with a pressure such that the blood reaches each and every part of the cell, each and every part of the body. That is the main function of a heart. If you close firmly your fist, that is the structure of your heart. You just take your right hand and close it firmly, tightly, and that fist shape or structure is the shape or structure of your heart. And you should be knowing that heart is almost found in the chest region, in the mediastinum. So we have a pair of lungs, one on the right and the other on the left chest, and in between these two we have this heart which is slightly tilted towards the left lung. Okay, so the heart is not straight, it is slightly tilted towards the left lung. So this is how our heart is found in our body. It is found in the chest region, it is found in the mediastinum region, and it is slightly tilted, and the shape of the heart is conical shape. And finally, this is the size of my heart. Like that, if you close your fist tightly, that is the size of your heart. Okay, now let us learn the structure of the heart. Yes, so this is the internal structure of a heart. We call this as LS of human heart. As I said in the beginning, human heart comprises of 4 chambers, 2 upper chambers and 2 lower chambers. The 2 upper chambers are known as atrium or atria, or they are also known as auricles. Okay, they are known as atrium or atria, singular plural. It is also known as auricles. The 2 lower chambers are known as ventricles. Okay, auricles, ventricles, or I could say atrium and ventricles. So if you look into a heart, this portion, actually for us this is the right side and this is the left side, but imagine this is someone else's heart lying here. So for that particular person, this is the left side and this is the right side.
And so the 4 chambers are left atrium, left ventricle, right ventricle and right atrium. So these are the 4 chambers. Again I repeat in other way, right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle and left ventricle. So these are the 4 chambers of the heart. So at this moment let me add one more thing, that is in fishes we have only 2 chambered heart, that is one auricle and one ventricle. So totally there will be one upper chamber and one lower chamber. So totally in fishes you will have only 2 chambered heart. In reptiles and amphibians there will be 3 chambered heart, that is it has 2 auricles like us and 1 ventricle. So totally 1, 2 and 3. So there will be only 3 chamber. Only in birds and mammals we have 4 chambered heart, that is right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle and left ventricle. So this also you should know when you learn about this heart. Okay, then when you look into the structure of this heart, you can find that the heart is a hollow fibro-muscular organ. So inside you have cavities, so which you call it as chambers, namely atrium and ventricles. So that's why it is known as hollow. And inside this hollow what will run? Blood will run. Okay, right. So there are 4 chambers which are hollow in nature. Then second, it is made up of muscles. Do you know what is the muscle heart is made up of? Yes, very good. Heart is made up of cardiac muscle. Okay, the muscle that is found in the heart is cardiac muscle, and you find some fibers inside. So that's why I define heart as hollow, fibro, muscular and conical organ. So if you look into the shape, it looks like a cone. That's why it is known as hollow, fibro, muscular, conical organ. And there are many structures here. So time being, for this 7th standard level, you don't need to know all those things. Time being, you just look into the diagram, you can find blue color blood vessels and red color blood vessels. So these red color blood vessels are none other than the veins, and the blue color blood vessels are none other than the arteries. So this you keep in mind. So you come across arteries which will be bluish in color, so something related to blood vessel, okay, which I didn't said earlier. Now I say arteries will be bluish in color and veins will be reddish in color. It need not to be bluish, it may be even purplish in color. Okay, arteries may be bluish or purplish, veins are red or pinkish in colors. Okay, right. So this is the basic structure of a heart. And if you look into the heart muscle, you can find in morning I said arteries, the walls of arteries will be thick compared to the walls of the veins. For that I said a reason that you will find low pressure in arteries, that is upper chambers, and there will be more pressure in the veins, since the blood from ventricles runs away out of the heart with a force, and that's why you come across arteries thicker and veins thinner. If you look into the cardiac muscles also, you can find the walls of the auricles, the walls of the auricles or the walls of the atrium will be thinner compared to the walls of the ventricles. See, you can find the veins, the ventricles, the walls of the ventricles will be thicker. This is also because of the pressure differences. Here you will have low pressure compared to the pressure in the ventricles, because from outside the blood will be collected into the atrium, and from the atrium the blood goes to the ventricles, that is from left atrium it goes to the left ventricle, from right atrium the blood goes to the right ventricle, and from this ventricles, that is from left and right ventricles, the blood goes away. Okay, if it is oxygenated blood, the blood will go to the cells, because cells only need oxygen. If it is deoxygenated blood, the blood goes to the lungs for purification. Again from lungs, after purification, that is carbon dioxide will be thrown away and oxygen will be carried, and that blood we call it as oxygenated blood, that again comes to the heart. So like this, impure blood from all the cells comes to the heart. From here it goes to the lungs. From the lungs again it comes to the heart. Now it is purified due to lungs, and again this pure form of blood, again I say pure means oxygen containing blood, this blood will go to each and every cell. So this is how the heart functions. Okay, we have 2 tissues in plants named as xylem and phloem. Xylem tissues are a special type of tissues which are involved in the transportation of water and minerals from the root system towards the shoot system. Maybe in lower classes you might have learned that water is found in the soil along with the minerals, and this is absorbed by the root, or I could say root hairs. Root hairs are involved in the absorption of water and minerals, which is absorbed by the root or root hair and is transported to the other parts of the plant, to each and every part of the body, plant body, through a special complex tissue known as xylem. So basically we have two types of tissues in plants, namely simple tissues and complex tissues. Maybe in higher classes you will learn about that. Now we are learning about two types of complex tissues, namely xylem and phloem. The first tissue is xylem, which is involved in the transportation of water and minerals, whereas the second tissue, which is involved in the transportation of food, the food that is produced by photosynthesis, which is none other than starch. The tissue that is involved in the transportation of this starch is phloem. So these are the two complex tissues that are found in plants that are involved in the transportation of certain substances. Where xylem is involved in the transportation of water and minerals, phloem is involved in the transportation of food, that is starch. So this starch, is produced in the leaf with the help of sunlight, water and chlorophyll pigment and carbon dioxide, and this process you call it as photosynthesis, and this starch is transported to all other parts of the body, plant body, through phloem tissues, xylem and phloem. Yes, we are at the end of today's session. With this few concepts, let me end today's class, that is transportation in plants and animals. Maybe in the next class we'll learn excretion of plants and animals. Okay, so we have been learning simple and the basic concepts of this transportation in animals as well as transportation in plants. So it's not enough that looking into this video and observing. It is better and best if you take your book and go through what is there in the book and compare with what we discussed today. So this is the basic of your higher studies. Circulatory system, what you have learned today, is the basic for your higher classes, especially in higher secondary and colleges. You learn many concepts related to the circulatory system. For all those, this is a simple and basic idea. Without this idea, you cannot understand the higher concepts in 10th standard, 12th standard, etc. So this is almost like alphabets in English. Without alphabets, you cannot learn anything, any subject except a language. So keeping this in mind, concentrate on these concepts, read, go through the concept that is in the book, and immediately try to memorize the words that I uttered today. So I have usually I used to discuss or explain more what is there in the book. So I hope you keenly listened to the lesson today. Maybe situation is not good, so we were not able to interact among each other. Especially I could not say whether you have understood properly what I explained today. I hope I hope you have understood what I discussed, what I taught, and what we discussed. And wait till we meet again in the next online class. Thank you. All the best for your online test as well as for your future exams. God bless. Thank you.